Whether you've been homeschooling for years or you're just thinking about taking the plunge, let us help you put the edge in your child's education here on The Homeschool Edge with your host, public school teacher turned homeschool hero, Aaron Potzik.
Welcome. So excited you're joining the Homeschool Edge with me, Aaron. That's right. Yeah, I taught in the public schools for 17 long years and homeschooled my kids the entire time. So I've got some pretty unique perspectives on all of the issues of an education today. We are going to learn about a resource you should be using, the Tuttle Twins books. Oh my gosh, they're amazing. Stick around. I got a promo code for you to use. Second thing, we'll take a peek at the public schools, see what's going on in there. Third thing, we're going to talk. I've been getting some feedback about some of our posting here at the Homeschool Edge. Go figure. But first, we are going to start with homeroom headlines. All right, here are your homeroom headlines for the day. Now, we are lucky because we are joined by the famous Principal B. Principal B, how you doing today?
I'm doing quite all right. Thank you. I just want to make sure that you understand and our fine folks at home understand. I am as accredited as a principal as the Homeschool Edge University is accredited as a university. Does that make sense?
Yes, it made lots of sense. And it's a really solid accreditation. So
Yes.
Excellent. All right, let's get started. First story we're going to talk about today is Christian parents sue Michigan school district for allegedly using male pronouns, masculine name for our autistic daughter without telling them.
It's terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Well, let me read to you a bit from the article here. This family is called, their name is the Meads, and I quote from the Daily Wire article here. The Meads were stunned when they discovered that the district had, without seeking their consent and while actively concealing information from them, begun to treat this poor little girl as a boy, referring to her with male pronouns and a masculine name at school, the lawsuit says. Now, this city, Rockford, which is just outside of Grand Rapids, it's pretty small, like 6,000 people small, and it's relatively conservative. But according to the Alliance for Defending Freedom, which is their organization they're using to bring suit against the school. They're doing great work, by the way. The school district went along with radical gender theories pushed by many on the left, violating the Meads' sincerely held religious beliefs and parental rights. Her transition to identifying as a boy allegedly began after she was diagnosed with, you guessed it, autism spectrum disorder. Now, to be sure, we all probably have a decent idea of what that means, but I went to Mayo Clinic's website, and here's how they define this. It's a condition related to brain development that impacts how a person perceives and socializes with others, causing problems in social interaction and communication. Principal B, doesn't that sound like the type of person who would be most easy to prey upon here?
Well, objection, leading the witness.
All right, let me rephrase. Yeah.
Well, I think any sensible human being would agree with that assertion. I think what's so terrible about this is not only, I mean, children are going to be vulnerable anyway.
Yeah.
This is clearly, if it's a child with autism, there's a whole other level of vulnerability. And I think about these poor parents who already have the challenge of raising this autistic child and trying to get them, on track and integrated into the world without, they already have challenges without this additional challenge being thrown in by the school, confusing even further.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be what the public schools do best, is confuse children. So, just tack another point up for public schools. Now, the article continues. After finding out the school went along with this girl's name and pronoun change, we do have this bit of good news. The Meads withdrew their daughter from the school district and began homeschooling her. Well, hey, I hate that this happened to them, and I'm sure it's going to be it's going to take time to heal this, and we pray that it does heal it. But at least we gained another number to the homeschooling crowd. I mean,
Yes,
some kind of
and
silver lining.
perhaps the homeschool edge should reach out to them to help assist them in getting that homeschool edge that they will need as new homeschoolers.
Ooh,
That is a silver lining.
yes, most
Terrible,
definitely.
terrible circumstances
Hmm.
that bringing it about, but a happy ending.
Yeah, and just so you know, the Alliance for Defending Freedom that's representing their case, here's a quote from them. Parents, not the government, have the right to direct the upbringing, education, and health care of their children. Schools should never deliberately hide vital information from parents. So that's the kind of organization that the Alliance for Defending Freedom is.
Oh,
All right.
so they are a domestic terrorist organization. Is that what you're saying?
Oh my gosh, yes. Put them on the list. What do we get? The FBI is going to be tuning into this show soon. So we better
Okay.
be careful.
So,
All
so what
right.
else? What else you got here?
All right. Well, we've got another one from The Guardian, and this article is called Lack of Homeschooling Oversight. Obvious danger to children, experts say. More U.S. families are choosing to homeschool, meaning removing access to mandated reporters and lack of educational monitoring. Principal B, that all actually sounds great.
Yeah, but what you're not factoring in the obvious danger of homeschools is
Oh,
that they don't even have metal detectors there.
oh my gosh. Well, yeah, we were thinking about installing one in our home, but we haven't yet. So
Sure.
true, 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 true. This is a
The
less
problem is
safe
when the kids
environment.
get the braces. They get the braces and then that metal detector's going off all the time.
Okay, we will watch out for that. All right,
Okay.
from the
Sorry.
article.
Oh,
This
right. There was
is
an article we were talking about. All right. So what's going
yes,
on there?
yes, yes. Can you believe I'm responsible for steering you back on track. Anyway, here we go.
Okay.
The article cites in large part, most of the article is citing an expert named Elizabeth Bartholet. Now, this is a professor of law emeritus at Harvard University, and she's done a lot of work, specialized work in child welfare. So we, according to the article, are hearing from an expert. And, I don't really love the expert title there because
Well, I'm gonna
there's
stop you right here.
oh,
She is
okay.
an
All right.
expert from Harvard.
Ooh.
Therefore, you're not as smart as this person, and you can stop thinking right now. Just
Hey, listen, that's the point. That's
that is the problem, isn't it?
that's the word expert getting used is it is good that you're hearing from somebody that's educated on the matter and have worked with the matter for a while, which is probably true anytime you hear expert,
Sure. We're
but
not we're not against expertise, people who
no.
have a greater knowledge in an area.
Yeah, but that is a real big idea to overcome is when you hear from an expert, what they hope the reader does is take down their supervision. Yeah, or their take down not their supervision, their suspicion
Ah,
of what
yes.
they're hearing. And as objective readers, we need to be suspicious of everything we read.
Sure.
Now, let's start in with the quote from Miss Bartholet here. She says, I think a lot of the people in the US promoting the current unregulated regime in homeschooling are saying,
Regime.
yes, the regime that we are, full of
Yes.
fascist dictators. Uh,
Yes.
Parents should have this absolute right to bring up their kids free of government intervention, Bartholet said. Yeah, that's exactly what we're saying, Miss Bartholet. You nailed it. But she goes on, and the rest of the world doesn't think that way. I think the rest of the world is much more ready to see children as having rights. They don't see as adults as having sacrosanct, ooh, there's that Harvard education, uh,
Yeah.
a right to be left alone by the government. They
That
see
is not a
adult.
I'm sorry, that is not a community college word. That is
This is so true. This is so true. They see adults as more part of the community and having responsibilities for children, not just rights vis-a-vis children. Well, I'll throw this over to you in a minute, Principal B, but I got to tell you, this woman is such an expert that she speaks for the entire world. I
well,
mean, that's impressive. That's
that's
impressive.
quite a burden. So she must be extra expert in order to be able to carry the entire world's opinions.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I'm glad they got her to write this for, well, to be the source for this article.
Well, yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I do recall taking a look at this article
Hmm.
that her uh, reason for that, what is the raison debt, the raison what the reason, the
Yeah,
raisins that
sure.
she eats,
Yes.
the sun maid that drives her life. No, is that she's concerned about the well-being of children, and that's not a joke. I mean, we're
Right.
all for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me actually, this will kind of speak to what you're talking about from
Okay,
the
yeah.
article
So go
here.
ahead.
Okay, so she continues. We're quoting, they're quoting her in the article. For example, we shouldn't allow parents to homeschool without first checking to see if they have a history of serious abuse and neglect, she said.
Oh,
And
you
if they,
think?
yeah, you think?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, yes. And if they have that kind of history, I don't think they should be permitted to homeschool. I mean, it seems to me fundamental if you care about kids' rights to say that if some parent has seriously abused one of their children, they shouldn't be permitted to keep this child at home free from any observation by any other human being. It just seems like an obvious danger for children. And just to be clear, we here at the Homeschool Edge agree with that statement 100%. In fact, I know zero homeschooling families that think children should be abused and isolated from the rest of the population. I don't know, Principal B, maybe you know some.
Well, I think that it's pretty surprising that you've taken this stance, because I was going to say I can't believe how brave she is
Oh,
to take this stance, this very radical stance that abused children should not be in the care of their abusers.
ah, yeah, very, very brave, bold statement. But
Yeah, I mean, so but what does that have to do with I mean, yes, yeah, I know, I agree. If you are abusing your child, you should not be able to homeschool them. I also think that if
correct.
you are abusing your child, you should not be able to make sandwiches for them. I think
Right.
so. Are we going to have a big article that talks about parents making sandwiches for their kids and what a danger in society this is? Because, abusive parents shouldn't be allowed to make sandwiches for their kids. I mean, the way they've conflated the issues
Yes.
is pretty ridiculous. Don't you have something to say about that, as far as how they start how sometimes they start an article one place and they go somewhere else?
Yeah, this is a very typical technique. You guys need to all be aware of this too. What will happen is you'll be reading an article, and then partway through the subject of the article, they do a switch around on you. And if you're already likely going along with the article, you're likely to not even catch it. But we started the article about homeschooling families. And then the article concluded, the section I just read was about abusive parents. Now, abusive parents are not unique to homeschooling. I was a public school teacher for many, many years and had loads of interactions with kids who were abused at home. And it was always a horrible thing. But when you end and conclude the article with your main point being abusive parents should not be able to keep their kids home, that's something everybody in the entire planet, at least any normal rational human being, completely agrees with. Yes, you should not keep your kids at home. And
Yeah,
all of my homeschooling friends and people I'm acquainted with, we all think the same thing. We think you're right about that. We just think you got your priorities mixed up about homeschooling.
yeah, I agreed. The problem of child abuse is a larger issue than child abuse in homeschools. That's like that's a segment. And
Hmm.
so while we're not for any of these things, obviously,
Well,
um,
except homeschooling.
well, sure,
Yeah.
we are for homeschooling. The article is starting with, well, there are some dangers that we have to worry about with homeschooling. You're like, okay, like what? And then it jumps to this much larger societal issue that is a danger for children anyway,
Right.
whether homeschooling is involved or not. I just officially on the record, yeah, we don't want abusive kids with abusive. No, we don't want abused kids. We don't want victim children in the houses and in the hands of abusers, whether they're homeschooling those kids or not.
That is correct. All right, that is correct. Well said, Principal B. Everybody stay tuned. Our public school peak is coming up.
Okay, boys, here we go. Screwball in his side pocket.
Here it is. It's time for the public school peak.
Coca-Cola. Sticking out your gas for the Riddler. You're so skibbity. You're so Phantom Tags. I just wanna be your sig.
Give me this. I'm tired of telling y'all to put your phones up. I said it 4 times before the bell.
Oh, dang. Well, that's all we're going to have time for in today's public school peak. Meet me in the teacher's lounge. Welcome to the teacher's lounge. Grab yourself a cheap, stale cup of coffee and let's talk. All right. What I want to talk to you about today is the feedback I've been getting on the Homeschool Edge channel. I've been doing some posting. Yeah, it's a little bit edgy, of course, as you would expect. But what I show is a lot of clips of what's happening in public schools and public school teachers. And the main feedback I seem to be getting is, well, I'm a teacher. I've never seen that. I'm a teacher. I don't have any kids like that. Well, let me ask you something. Just because you haven't personally experienced something proves it's not actually going on? Of course not. I haven't experienced living through a war, but I know they go on and I know it's something to try to avoid. And I know it's a very, very real threat. So when you come across these issues that we talk about or that we post on here at the Homeschool Edge, I want you to stop any mention. You would say, well, I don't know if that's actually true. I've never had that. A friend of mine actually told me when I was making a lot of homeschool posts years ago that, Aaron, our kids don't have to go through that. We're from this small town and on and on and on. And this argument has never held any weight to me because just because, as I was saying before, you haven't experienced personally, doesn't mean it's not real and doesn't mean it's not a threat. Let's use the war example again. Is it a pretty big threat that United States could be entering a serious war? Of course it is. Of course it is. And we can't sit back and say, well, just because, I've never had one before, we don't really have to worry about it. Yes, we do have to worry about it. Educating children and children being treated in a loving manner is everybody's responsibility. So let's step up, people. All right. Wasn't that enlightening? Oh, yes. Great wise words there, Aaron. All right. Next, we're going to see what's in the locker. Educated. All right. Look what's in the locker today. It's the Tuttle Twins books. I have to tell you, I'm a fan. As a parent, being able to read to my 7-year-old complex issues like the stock market and the proper role of government. And even in this really fun book, The Leviathan Crisis, where the kids are playing this fun interactive role-playing game. And this situation occurs where they can just play the idol of the Leviathan and they beat any enemy. But then at the end, what they realized happened was they were leveling up the idol and not themselves. It's kind of like the government trying to stick a Trojan horse in there, and everybody says, yes, please, yes, please. It's going to help get us through this level or this time in our lives. And we let the government do it and we accept it. And it didn't really level us up or get us any better than we started, but it did give the government a whole lot of power. Yeah, issues and themes like these are all throughout these amazing books. One night I was reading to my son before bedtime, and I was reading to him this Messed Up Market. It's actually a great story about a young entrepreneur's market they start, and they learn about kind of the stock market. And it goes into some in-depth terms, but it it weaves it in so nicely with the story that you hardly even know. And my 16-year-old daughter walked by and said, "What are you reading?" So these books right here are your answer for teaching your kids solid conservative / libertarian economic and government principles. And I promise you, it's going to be a lot of fun and your kids are going to love it. Thank you so much for joining us here today on the Homeschool Edge. All the articles we mentioned, the Tuttle twins and the promo code, they will be in the show notes below this post. I cannot wait to see you back here next week for another episode of the Homeschool Edge.